Hi guys. Okay, we're going to go through board start procedure. This is how to teach a board start. It's very simple. I've had over the last few years, I've had a few people come to me with different techniques of what they've been taught. I'm going to go through what I believe is the simplest way, or no, possibly not the shortest, but it's because it's simple, it works quite easily for my students, and hopefully it will help you with your students. Right, okay, so we have 5 elements that are out there. We have the sea, the wind, we have the kite board, we have the kite, and we have ourselves. Obviously we can't do anything about the sea or the wind. They're going to do whatever they're going to do, but we need to take control of the board, we need to control the kite, and we need to control ourselves. So firstly, I'm going to go through the technique that we need to teach to the students with regards to the kite, the board, and then ourselves, and then hopefully you will teach the same technique and help you guys. So firstly, with the kite, we have the wind window as such. If we're going to ride off to the left side, over to that side there, then we need to take the kite over to the 1 o'clock position, take it down towards the sea, and then back up to the 11 o'clock position in a nice sort of V shape in there. And we need to do that in small bites. So if it's quite high winds, we wouldn't be diving that kite down from the 1 o'clock straight down to the sea and back up again. We will take it down from 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock and then down in a small bite and then back up again. And the more bites that we take out of that, the more power we will generate. I don't like to see students that suddenly just dive the kite straight at the sea and find out that they just then take a 10-foot leap into the water and get a little bit of whiplash and a little bit of concussion. If you're riding the opposite way, obviously it's the opposite thing, but it's still a small bites. It's just get the student okay with moving the kite very slowly to 11 o'clock, but dive it down up there and then over to 1 o'clock, and then slowly to 11 o'clock and dive it down, and then over to 1 or 2 o'clock and then dive it down again, building up the power that they may need to generate to get them up in small doses, small times. By keeping the kite and generating the kite to be kept at 12 o'clock to begin with, it gives them that balance that they need anyway. So get them to balance the kite nicely first before you start doing the dive.
The advantage of doing a small dive and then lifting the kite up as well is that the kite is never being fired down to the water at speed, so it's much less likely to damage any of the equipment.
Yeah, you'll be less likely to break the 2 front lines and also the front leading edge. So yeah, look after your gear as well as the students. Okay, so that's the technique that we want to use with the kite. Okay, and that will include getting up, going along for a metre or 2, and stopping. Okay, so once we've done that, we then teach what we need to do with the board. Now the board needs to be in a flat braking position, as I think about it. When the kite's at 12 o'clock, that board is in braked position, it's flat up against you, you put it on your feet on it and your knees are up into your chest. When you dive the kite down in the little bites, you are literally going to move, either your left foot is going to come up and out of the water and point downwind, or your right foot is going to come up and out of the water and point downwind. And that board is then going to go flat on and onto the plane slightly, and to build a little bit of speed while it's on the plane. As soon as it's on the plane and you're riding along, the student can stand up, and then they can then edge slightly by looking over their shoulder into the right position with their body. Okay, and that is all they need to do. If they don't keep and move that board and flatten it off, they are not going to get up on the board. If they can't move it forward and flatten it off, they're not going to get up the board. If they keep it like that, they're going to go over the front and slip their faces into the water. Okay, so we need to get that front foot up and over. Alright, so the next bit that we need to do is we need to now think about what we're going to do with our bodies. And our bodies will start off on the floor with my wellies on. I get a nice wet bum. I start off on my back. put the board onto my feet. I'm keeping the kite at 12 o'clock. Hello, Rupert. Kite stays at 12 o'clock. I have the board on. Board is in the brake position. My knees are high into my chest. And I'm now going to slightly dive my kite to the left or the right. I'm going to pull left a little bit and then hard right and move up into this position at the same time. So that, start that again. 1, 2 with the kite. 1, 2 and up to this position. Note that this foot is come straight in and tight into my buttocks, and this foot is now already starting to go out and lean forward. The kite power and pull should just about be here, just when I need it right now for this sticky bit. So as I do it, 1, 2, I've got the sticky bit out the way. That's the sticky bit. Soon as I'm past the sticky bit, as I stand up with this foot now pointing downwind, I can push the bar away and stand up with my weight on my back foot and my hips slightly forward. So I've now pushed the bar away and I've pushed the power away from the kite. I don't need any more of that power to stand up. I now get my body position right, and that is very simply just leaning back, back legs bent with my buttock overhanging my heel and my front foot nice and straight, all a straight line through the front of my body. I can now surf off and look over my shoulder of the direction I'm travelling, and that will then lead me into that direction, and I will heel edge my board. As soon as I get up on the board start, I then send the kite back down to 12 o'clock, bend both my knees and sit back down again into the brake position and do a controlled stop. I have only travelled about 5 to 10 metres. I haven't gone halfway down the beach, crashed into the sand and then thought, wow, that's brilliant, and then given myself a bit of whiplash. I have literally done a demonstration to my students that has made me travel 5 or 10 metres that way, and I'll do 3 or 4 or 5 that direction, and then I'll do 1, 2, 3 attempts that direction. Then I'll come back and I will ask the students what they were looking at. Were they looking at the kite or were they looking at the board? And if need be, I'll get them to turn around and look at the opposite things so that they can get an understanding for what the kite has been doing and what the board has been doing. And then I will hand the kite over to them and it's their go at doing it. Okay? Good luck.
What's worth really noting is that when we were watching Clive do the sit-up there, is he's really using his stomach muscles and throwing his shoulders forwards to get up onto the board.
Yeah.
If the students don't do that, they won't go anywhere. They'll just slide along on their bum. No matter how much power they've got in the kite, they're not going to get into standing position. So you have to really emphasise that they have to use their core strength and their muscles to try and stand up onto the board, use their legs to explode up and try and get into that vertical position.
Yeah,
I actually sometimes break it down even further. So I break it down to phase 1, which is actually a board stand. So we're not even trying to get any further than just standing up on the board. So we're using a little bit less power in the kite, and they're using a lot of stomach muscles. They're doing all the board start, as Clive has said, all the basics, getting everything in order that they need to be. They're just trying to stand up on the board. That way they're doing it with less power, they've got a lot more control, and they're getting into a position which they can then ride on from. So it breaks it down a little bit more, makes it slightly easier to understand and more in control. If they can't do the board stand, but come up out the water, then there's no point trying to teach them to ride 10 metres because they're not going to get there. It's easier to do 10 attempts getting up standing, build their confidence up, build up their kite control and get that phase 1 done, and then do phase 2, the second dive of the kite, to try and get them riding 10, 15 metres. That way they're going to be in a lot more control. They're probably less likely to fly over the front of the board and hurt themselves, and less likely to crash the kite and damage the kit.
Cool. I agree.